The day that changed my life. There have been many significant moments in my life that have left an indelible mark on my soul. However, there was one day that stands out from the rest, a day that changed my life forever. It was an ordinary summer day, and I decided to visit my grandfather who lived in a small town 50 miles away from my home. I had always adored my grandfather. He was a kind and gentle person, always ready to listen and offer advice. I got on the bus, feeling excited to see him again after a long time. The journey was uneventful, and I reached the town by noon. My grandfather greeted me with a big smile and a warm hug. We sat down to have lunch, and he began to tell me about his latest adventures. As we talked, I noticed that he seemed weaker than usual, and his voice had a slight quiver. I asked him if he was okay, and he smiled reassuringly and said that he was just tired. After lunch, we went for a walk around the town, visiting the local market and chatting with the friendly shopkeepers. My grandfather loved this town and knew everyone here. As we passed by an old church, he suddenly stopped and pointed out a plaque on the wall. It was a dedication to the soldiers who had died in the war, and my grandfather explained how he had fought alongside some of them during his youth. He spoke with such passion and pride that it felt like I was living the moment with him. I remember feeling overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude towards him. We continued to walk for a while longer, and then it happened. My grandfather suddenly clutched his chest and gasped in pain. I froze, not knowing what to do. He fell to the ground, and I rushed to him, calling out his name. He was unresponsive, and I realized that he had suffered a heart attack. Panic set in, and I could feel tears streaming down my face. I dialed the emergency number and waited for the ambulance to arrive. The next few hours were a blur of emotions and events. My grandfather was taken to the hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery. I stayed there with him, praying and hoping that he would make it through. The doctor had a grim look on his face, telling me that his chances of survival were slim. I refused to accept that, and I vowed to do everything in my power to keep him alive. Days turned into weeks, and my grandfather remained in critical condition. I spent every waking moment by his side, holding his hand and talking to him. I told him stories of our family, of our childhood memories, of everything that mattered to us. I could see his eyelids fluttering, and I knew that he was listening to me. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, my grandfather opened his eyes. He looked confused and bewildered, but then he saw me and smiled weakly. It was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen. I hugged him tightly, and he chuckled, saying that he felt like a prisoner of war. The road to recovery was long and difficult, but we faced it together. I helped my grandfather with his physical therapy, making sure that he regained his strength and mobility. I cooked his favorite meals, read to him, and watched movies with him. We laughed and cried together, sharing the depths of our souls. My grandfather survived the heart attack, but things were never the same again. He had become weaker, more fragile, and more dependent on others. I had to be there for him all the time, leaving behind my studies, my friends, and my personal pursuits. But I never regretted it because I knew that this was the most important thing I could do, loving and caring for someone who had given so much to me. In the months that followed, my grandfather's health continued to deteriorate. He suffered from numerous ailments, and I had to take him to the hospital frequently. I became an expert on medical terms, medication schedules, and nursing care. I prayed fervently for his recovery, but deep down, I knew that he didn't have long to live. On a cool autumn evening, my grandfather passed away peacefully in his sleep. I was devastated beyond words. I felt like a part of me had died as well. I missed him terribly, his stories, his laughter, his presence. But I also knew that he had left behind a legacy of love and resilience that would stay with me forever. The day that changed my life was the day he had his heart attack, because I realized the importance of family, of love, of compassion. It was the day that I saw that life is precious and fragile, and that we should cherish every moment we have with those we love. It was the day that I discovered my role as a caregiver and learned to put others before myself. It was the day that I became a better human being. All in all, the day that changed my life was a day of pain and sorrow, but it was also a day of growth and transformation. It taught me the importance of sacrifice for those you love, and how much worth there is in putting others' needs before your own. I am sad that my grandfather is no longer with us, but at the same time I am happy that he led a full life, a life that we all are proud of. He relentlessly fought with his condition, teaching me one more life lesson before parting ways. Looking back, I realize that a single event can have a massive impact on our lives. That day changed the trajectory of my life, and I will forever be grateful for the lessons I learned alongside my grandfather.